Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where and when in the world you're listening to this. My name's Peter, and I'm the fairly new subject area lead in audio and text-to-speech. And in this short presentation, I will explain what we mean by audio and text-to-speech, what we're covering, tell you about what guidance and standards UCAF has to offer. I'll then demonstrate these techniques with some pointers about what to do and what not to do, and finally we'll talk about next steps. So what is audio and text-to-speech, and why does it matter? Around 9 in 10 people who are totally blind do not read Braille. That's according to both RNIB in the UK and NFB in the US, and 2 million or more people in the UK have serious difficulty reading even large print due to poor vision, dyslexia, or other reasons. For all these people, listening to information in some form is essential, which is where audio and text-to-speech come in. For leisure reading among blind people, talking books have a long and honourable history starting after the First World War, and audiobooks are now commonplace. But what about bank statements, bills, cookery books, official letters, reference, work-related documents, and specialised books for research and study? The two main ways in which these can be accessed are audio, where the material is read out loud, recorded, and provided in the most convenient and useful form, whether that be a CD or files on a memory stick or streamed online. Text-to-speech, TTS, where the material is in electronic form and is accessed using software with speech synthesis on a computer, tablet, or smartphone. There is also a hybrid scenario, where a transcriber uses text-to-speech and then records that as audio, so these are the methods we are covering here. Now to say something about guidance and standards. UCAF gives guidance for you if you need to provide something in audio or TTS form, and points to relevant standards where appropriate. For simple audio material, the most relevant standard is MP3, which has become the de facto format for most spoken audio. The MP3 standard itself is concerned with how audio files are compressed so that they take up less storage space, and there isn't an overarching standard for recorded information. But, for example, for speech clarity, it's vital to use a bit rate no lower than 128 kbps. Otherwise, it may be more difficult or impossible to understand what's being said. When it comes to more structured material, mainstream publishers tend to use a simple approach of splitting audiobooks into chapters, with one file per chapter. It's then only possible to jump to a given chapter, or by time. This may be adequate for reading fiction, but is not helpful for those other cases such as academic books, with multiple heading levels for sections and subsections. For this type of material, the DAISY standard, used by many specialist providers for audiobooks designed specifically for people with print reading difficulties, is very effective, and UCAF can point you to the DAISY standard and relevant software needed to prepare material in DAISY format. There's an emerging standard comparable with DAISY in its aims, which, it's hoped, could be adopted by mainstream publishers, and so improve the navigation of all audiobooks. This standard is called LPF, Lightweight Packaging Format, and is being developed and promoted by organisations for visually impaired people and other organisations in collaboration with W3C, which is the World Wide Web Consortium. UCAF supports this initiative and will keep abreast of developments. The Speech Synthesis Markup Language, or SSML, specifically provides a rich XML-based markup language that assists in the generation of synthetic speech in web and other applications. The essential role of the markup language is to provide authors of synthesizable content a standard way to control aspects of speech such as pronunciation, volume, pitch, rate, etc. across different synthesis-capable platforms. Regarding text-to-speech, the standards which are relevant here are those which ensure that documents and websites are accessible to people using computers, smartphones, or tablets to access them. So these are such standards as HTML, PDF, EPUB, and so on, which are covered by other presentations, but I'll demonstrate later on why they're relevant and important when discussing text-to-speech. Common examples of assistive technology screen readers, so that's the software which allows a blind person or a visually impaired person to use the computer without, for example, without using a mouse. Common ones include Apple VoiceOver for Mac and for iPhone, Microsoft Narrator, which is built into Windows, NVDA, which is a free screen reader and is now very effective and very popular, and JAWS, which is the oldest and most well-established screen reader. It's also very expensive, but it's used in some very specific work situations, and also TalkBack for Android smartphones. Now, what about resources? If you need to record something using audio, then UCAF has the following guidance documents: minimum standards for audio recording techniques, audio presentation skills, and reading skills. If there's a need, we may prepare a guidance document for the hybrid case, where you automate the process of turning a document into audio by using text-to-speech and then recording that as audio. There are pitfalls to avoid here, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. The UCAF website also has links and pointers to the relevant standards. External resources for audio and TTS which are worth consulting are the Web Accessibility Initiative, or WAI, which is hosted by W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, this is acronym central, Speech Synthesis Markup Language, 2010, and MP3 2001. Now, coming on to what's happening at the moment with regard to this technology, besides the emerging LPF standard I mentioned, the current developments in this field are related to the more diverse ways in which people can listen to content. The growing use of smart speakers such as Alexa, Google, and Apple's HomePod, which are even more popular among people with print reading difficulties, means that these platforms can be used to disseminate audio, for example by developing an Alexa skill. Equally, more and more people are using iPhones, iPads or Android smartphones and tablets in addition to traditional computers, so the specific methods used, different apps and screen readers, need to be taken into account. Important developments in voice synthesis include deep learning approaches which produce realistic voices in a wide variety of languages and intonations. DeepMind, now owned by Google, developed WaveNet for realistic TTS translation in 2016, and this can now be used from the Google Cloud as a service. The UCAF board and subject area leads are part of wider networks, including TAVIP, the Technology Association of Visually Impaired People, which used to be called BCAB, long affiliated with UCAF, and we can draw on this knowledge base to advise on questions relating to new technologies as they arise. So now I'll let you hear a few examples of the kind of things I've been talking about. When I was at school, we used to have 2 talking book machines for the whole school. So if you wanted to listen to an audiobook, you would have to book a slot, and then when you got there, you'd probably find that the tape was twisted or something else would go wrong. So imagine what a joy it is now to be able to say, Alexa, play my book.
Getting your book from Audible. Resuming A Tale of Two Cities.
She entertained herself with such humane achievements as sentencing a youth to have his hands cut off, his tongue torn out with pincers, and his body burned alive because he had not kneeled down in the rain to do honour to a dirty procession of monks.
Alexa,
to make us
go back 1 minute.
The Dover Road lay, as to him,
Alexa,
beyond the Dover.
Go forward a chapter.
Chapter 3. The Night Shadows.
So that's perfectly good for reading fiction, where you're reading for pleasure and maybe you just went to sleep and want to go back a bit or go back to the chapter before or whatever it might be. But what about books where you're actually studying or you need to find information from a large, complicated structure? Well, this is where Daisy comes in. And to give you an example of what you can do with a Daisy book, let's say that I want to look for something on page 30. Well, I'll ask it to go to page 30.
Go to page 30. Enter. Page 30.
Page 30. Basic settings for using smart media or a USB storage device. 1. Press the File button to enter the file mode.
Now I can go to the next section.
Level 1.
So if I jump by level 1 headings,
Quick Guide, playing the Motif ES.
and again.
Quick Guide, Advanced Course.
Now if
Editing
we
a
jump by
voice.
level 2,
Level 2.
Editing a performance, still on page 87.
and again.
Creating a song on the Motif ES.
So hopefully that shows you that you can navigate in a very flexible way. You can move straight to a particular page, or by section, or by subsection. Daisy audiobooks can be read on a number of dedicated devices, such as the Victor range from Humanware, and also, of course, on personal computers and on smartphones, either iPhone or Android, using applications from Dolphin and from Freedom Scientific, among others. Now, coming on to text-to-speech, again, there are a number of applications on different platforms which can read both simple text and other formats such as PDF, including Daisy. A very popular one is Voice Dream Reader, which is what I'm going to demonstrate on the iPhone. So this is a book in plain text. I press play.
Taken as a whole, the cumulative effect of continual background imitation is powerful.
And with this, it's giving me the choice of navigating by
Bookmark,
highlight,
paragraph, sentence, 60 seconds, 15 seconds.
and so on. So even with an unformatted text file, I have a fairly flexible way to navigate through. But if it were a Daisy formatted book, then we'd have the same choices as I showed you just now. And keep in mind that a Daisy book can contain both audio and text, so if you're reading the audio and you suddenly need to check the spelling of a complicated word or a formula or something like that, you can then jump to the exact spot that you were listening to and read it in detail. Now I need to talk a little about the hybrid case where you need to record something using text-to-speech. So either you're preparing material which you know will be read by a text-to-speech system, or you're using a text-to-speech system in order to record the material. I said that there are some pitfalls here to watch out for, and I'll show you what I mean. I was puzzled recently by an item in the TV listings which sounded like this.
Women's FA Cup,
I don't know what you heard there, but what it should have said was...
Women's FA Cup.
So the point here is that if you have initials, then the text-to-speech may well try to pronounce the initials as a word. So you either need to put spaces in between the initials so that the text-to-speech will speak the letters separately, or you need a very clever text-to-speech, or you may be able to use SSML, speech synthesis markup language, to tell the speech synthesizer how to pronounce it. But the point is you need to be careful when you have initials. The same applies to sequences of numbers. For example, would you rather hear this string of digits spoken like this?
4,962,154,621.
Or like this?
42319160776.
I think you get the point. The same applies to punctuation. For example, if the speech synthesis reads the punctuation, you may get something like this.
This sentence, comma, with a number of clauses, comma, might be read like this, comma, which would not be ideal, full stop.
What you want is for it to observe the punctuation, but not to read it out like this.
This sentence, with a number of clauses, might be read like this, which would be okay.
We could devote a whole nother presentation to text-to-speech on its own, but just a couple more points for now. Firstly, remember that although the voices we've heard so far have been fairly human sounding, many blind people still use older text-to-speech or more electronic sounding text-to-speech for the simple reason that it's possible to make it go much faster. When you use human voices and you try to speed them up, they don't sound very good, and sometimes the comprehension disappears. So people will be listening to the UCAF website like this.
Link skip to content. Link skip to navigation. Skip content menu navigation landmark list with 6 items. Link standards. Link sectors. Link abilities. Link about UCAF. Link membership. Link partners out of list. Banner landmark heading level 1 UK Association for Accessible Formats. Making every document an accessible document. List with 2 items. List with 5 items. Contrast. Button default contrast. Button black and white contrast. Button black and yellow contrast. Button yellow and black contrast out of list. List with 5 items. Font. Button smaller font. Button larger font. Button readable font. Button default font out of list. Out of list.
That's what happens when you read a website from beginning to end. And remember that audio and text-to-speech are always serial. So this is what you get in order, unless you jump around. So, for example, if we want to go straight to a heading, I can press H for heading.
Joining UCAF region. Become a member of UCAF and benefit from.
And we get joining UCAF.
UCAF standards region are.
UCAF standards.
Braille heading level 2.
Braille.
Large print heading.
Large print.
PDF heading level 2.
PDF, and so on, which is why it's so important to use that kind of structure. You'll hear much more about this in other presentations about HTML and PDF and so on, but just to say that we still come across websites which sound like this.
Link, 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 link. Image, image, src equals http / www.blabla.blabla.com/39xcky.
And finally, to see what the future holds, this is Google's DeepMind, which claims to be the most human-sounding voice, and it does implement SSML, so it's worth keeping abreast of developments here. And it sounds like this.
Google Cloud Text-to-Speech enables developers to synthesize natural-sounding speech with 100+ voices, available in multiple languages and variants. It applies DeepMind's groundbreaking research in WaveNet and Google's powerful neural networks to deliver the highest fidelity possible. As an easy-to-use API, you can create lifelike interactions with your users, across many applications and devices.
So what about next steps? What your next step should be in terms of preparing your material using either audio, text-to-speech, or both depends entirely on where you are now. I hope that you'll find what you need by starting from the UCAF website, but I'm new to UCAF, so I'm still learning about what you might actually need, and that's why my main suggestion for your next step is to contact me, peter@soundlinks.com. That's peter@soundlinks.com, to ask questions and tell me what you need. God bless, and if you have been, thank you for listening.